Hey guys, today I have a book haul to share with you. So let's get going with this book haul. I got a pretty large one. This is what happens when I don't go out very much other than Barnes & Noble, and I spend all my money at Barnes & Noble. So I got 30 books to share with you guys. I'm kind of just sitting here looking at all of them. I think this is all just totally brand new books. I don't think I've read a single one of these books, but yeah, I am pretty excited to get to all of them eventually, at some point, hopefully in the near future rather than the far future. Good lord. So yeah, let's get going, guys. The first set of books that I have here all are Winnie the Pooh related by A.A. Milne. I've said before that I work at Cracker Barrel, and we have a section at Cracker Barrel that's like bee themed, like bees and honey and stuff like that. So of course, Cracker Barrel, their great idea was like, oh, let's throw in Winnie the Pooh. He likes honey. So they had these sets of Winnie the Pooh books, and I was like, oh, these are cute, I'm gonna get these. I've never read the books before, so I was like, I have an employee discount, I'm just gonna go ahead and get these. So yeah, here's the first book for Winnie the Pooh. It's just simply called Winnie the Pooh. And then The House at Pooh Corner, When We Were Very Young, and the last one, Now We Are Six. And I've never read these books before, and my only familiarity with the Winnie the Pooh story and characters is through Disney, obviously, so I am curious to read these and see how they do compare to how Disney has portrayed it. Next up, Gentleman Jack, The Real Anne Lister by Anne Coma. I am a huge fan of the HBO TV series that this book is based off of. If you don't know what Gentleman Jack is about, it is a real story about a real woman. Her name was Anne Lister, and she was a tough businesswoman living in the 19th century. And kind of one of the big things that she's known for is that she was one of the first, essentially very outspoken lesbian women back in the day. So, like I said, I really love the HBO miniseries, so I was like, I'm going to give this a shot and see how I like it, because this is supposed to be her diaries, and that was a big thing about Anne Lister, that the miniseries was kind of getting into, that she wrote diary entries her entire life, but they were like really cryptic and coded, and I guess it took years for people to kind of figure out like her system of how her diary was wrote out and whatnot. So this has a lot of her diary entries and just kind of going into her life and the times she lived in, essentially. Next up, The Library of Legends by Janie Chang. This is historical fiction taking place in China in 1937. And at the start of this book, China is being, I guess, bombed by Japan. And the story follows this young girl and her university friends, and they are essentially fleeing this bombing, and they're kind of traveling away to get to safety. And in their possession, they are apparently taking with them this very valuable, I guess like a scroll of some sort that has a lot to do with like Chinese folklore and whatnot. And it's something very precious to them, very valuable. It must be protected at all costs. So I'm guessing that's kind of what this whole story is. It's about all these young people trying to flee this bombing. There's a lot going on, but yet at the same time they're trying to protect this really valuable object in their possession. It sounds all sorts of awesome, you guys. Next up, I have another book in the Six Tudor Queens series by Alison Weir. Up here is Anna of Cleve, the princess in the portrait, and this is Henry VIII's third wife. We all know he has 6 of them. So yeah, like I've mentioned this in other book hauls, I'm waiting for Alison Weir to publish all 6 of these books, and then I'm just gonna essentially binge through them all. So yeah, this 3rd book finally came out in paperback. I know the 4th book has come out, but in hardback, so I'm waiting for that one to come out in paperback. But yeah, ooh, pretty cover. I'm sitting here just looking at the cover, you guys. It's so pretty. Next, Beheld by Taishia Nesbitt. This is historical fiction, and the premise of this, it takes place 10 years after the landing of the Mayflower in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And it's essentially following the people who were on the Mayflower, their new life here in the New World, and how things are going. And then one day, there's like a new ship of colonists that land on their shore, and it from what I kind of gather from the plot, it sounds like some things are kind of stirred up. Some trouble is brewing, and some sort of crime. It doesn't mention the crime in the synopsis, but it just says something about there's some sort of crime that happens that really like rattles and shakes the community to its core. So it sounds like this might possibly be a murder mystery, maybe, I'm going to guess. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it sounds really awesome. I don't think I've ever read a book about the people of Plymouth, you guys. You know, like I said, it takes place 10 years after the arrival of the Mayflower, so that sounds pretty cool. I'm definitely excited to get to this. The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. And you guys, I really don't know too terribly much about this book, other than what was kind of being promoted about it, that it's this cross between a sort of retelling, I suppose, of Les Mis by Victor Hugo and the Jungle Book stories, that's just such an odd clash of books. So I'm kind of curious what the hell is going to happen in this book. But yeah, the Les Mis part of it is what really attracted me to the plot. But yeah, it takes place in France. I believe it's at 1829. So yeah, it's like I think there's going to be these stirrings of revolution in the background. And what the book sounds like, it doesn't totally sound like a pure historical fiction, because this is a young adult historical fiction, and young adult historical fiction tends to be a bit more fantasy based, a bit more fantastical, and tends to kind of loosen some things up. So yeah, this sounds like a fantasy version of France, and there's like France is it's like divided up. There's like the wealthy, and then all the poorer classes. Like everybody's like divided up into these guilds, is how the book sounds. And like the main girl in this, she's part of like the thieves guild or something like that. So it sounds like a really fantastical, wild and crazy version of the 1800s France and whatnot. So like I said, I was really primarily attracted to this because it said something about, you know, being kind of a loose adaptation of Les Mis, and I love Les Mis, you guys, so I'm going to see how this goes. Hopefully it's not too bad. The Animals at Lockwood Manor by Jane Healy. This is a book that is starting right at the start of World War II, it sounds like. It follows a young woman who is traveling to this location, a Lockwood Manor. And at Lockwood Manor, what's being held here is like a lot of prized, valuable objects. Primarily just a bunch of animals, trying to keep safe a lot of the animals as Germany is invading Britain and whatnot. And what follows is that it almost sounds like this has a bit of a gothic horror element as well, because it sounds like there's some weird things that start happening at Lockwood Manor, and some of the animals start disappearing. So I don't know if this book sounds more ominous than what it is. But yeah, I was like, this sounds really cool. This place protecting some animals, and it said like it's like an art, also like an art museum too, I think, like protecting some arts as well. So yeah, this sounds right up my alley, you guys. The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner, and this sounds like a sweet little charming book, you guys. It takes place post World War II, and it follows all these people who come from different backgrounds in life that all share the same love of Jane Austen, essentially. And what they're trying to do is they're just trying to preserve the legacy of Jane Austen, preserve her family home, and yeah, they're all learning to know each other and whatnot. It just sounds like a really sweet, like a quaint, I guess that's how I'll put it. It sounds like a little quaint, a little story that Jane Austen is what's bringing all these people together, who's trying to help them all fight their inner demons or whatever. And speaking of Jane Austen, I have this lovely edition of Emma. I have seen, what was it, the Gwyneth Paltrow adaptation? I have not seen the new adaptation, you guys, with Anya Taylor-Joy. I've been wanting to see that one really badly, but I have seen the version with Gwyneth Paltrow, and I really liked that, but I have never read the book. So I'm going to give Emma a chance. I've had some rough patches with Jane Austen in the past. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love Sense and Sensibility. But I read Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, and I just had the roughest time with those. I did not like them. So I'm really hoping I'll like Emma. I think there's something about Emma, because I think it's supposed to be kind of a bit more like a comedy. I have a feeling I'm really going to enjoy Emma. That it'll definitely be a favorite for me, like Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, I'm hoping. But yeah, if you don't know what Emma is about, it's about a young woman named Emma. She likes to play matchmaker, but she has no kind of life of her own, like a love life, but she likes playing matchmaker for everybody else, and of course this causes a lot of drama and turmoil and comedy and strain. So yeah, hopefully I like Emma, you guys. Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston, and this is a Star Wars related book following Queen Amidala, or Padme, however you want to view this character. This is actually a second book to this particular series. Me and my sister do have the other book. So yeah, this is just another book focused on Queen Amidala, I guess taking place primarily there during Phantom Menace, I'm supposing. So yeah, I hope I like this. You guys, this book sounds all sorts of awesome. This is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and let me be blunt, it pretty much sounds almost like And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, but I'm okay with that. It still sounds right up my alley, though, in terms of, like, contemporary mystery thrillers sort of thing. It's about all these people who get together. They go to this island that's secluded, essentially. Nothing else there other than this grand house, and they're all there to celebrate the wedding of like their friends. So there's a wedding. There's all these guests, the guest list, I guess. And it sounds like there's like a storm that happens. The power's kind of going in and out. And yeah, everybody has some sort of secret and mystery. And it just sounds all sorts of awesome. Are people going to die? I bet so. I'm not sure how this is pronounced. Is it De-Evolution or Devolution? I feel like I'm overpronouncing it somewhere. But yeah, by Max Brooks. And you guys, the only other Max Brooks novel that I've read was World War Z. I was just so freaking impressed with World War Z. I loved World War Z to bits. So, yeah, this book, it doesn't really kind of speak to me, because it's kind of this reimagining of the Bigfoot legend, essentially, and I'm not really into kind of the Bigfoot thing, but I primarily picked this book up because of Max Brooks' name, because I do love World War Z so much, and I was like, I'm going to give this a shot, because I might be very pleasantly surprised with it if it turns out to be just as good and just as epic as World War Z. And yeah, what I love so much about World War Z is Max Brooks just bring in a certain sense of reality and realism to the zombie genre, and just making it feel so real, like this is something that could really happen. So I'm kind of expecting the same sort of thing with this book, that, you know, we all know the story of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or however you want to view that myth. So I'm kind of expecting him to do that same sort of thing and bring that same sort of gravitas, if you will, by giving something very real, and really making you believe in this story. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this, you guys. Next up, I have two books that are part of a series. This is Hunting Prince Dracula and Escaping from Houdini, both by Carrie Maniscalco. I do own the first book in this series, which was, is it, God, what is it? Something Jack the Ripper. Chasing Jack the Ripper? Something like that. I'm trying to remember. They all have like a certain type of flow to the title, but it has something to do with Jack the Ripper. So yeah, the next one in the series, Dracula obviously, and then Houdini, and then there is a 4th book out, but I'm waiting for the 4th book to come out in paperback, and that one has something to do with the devil. I've heard a lot of really good things about this series. I don't know too terribly much about it, which I'm glad, because I'm glad I haven't been spoiled yet. Obviously, I don't want to be spoiled about these books. But yeah, the covers are just absolutely gorgeous, and just kind of what I know briefly from all of the synopses, they just sound directly like something I'm going to enjoy. You know, historical fiction, some fantasy elements. Yeah, I definitely can't wait to binge this entire series once I do get the 4th one in paperback. Up next is a book that's probably going to make me cry, you guys. I can already feel it. This is The Last Train to London by Meg Waite Clayton, and this has to do with people trying to protect a bunch of Jewish children, essentially, from Nazi occupation. This sounds just right up my alley. I'm probably going to cry. It's probably going to be heartbreaking. Whenever I read about stuff, you know, about all of the children during this time period, it just really tugs at you, and it's like, oh God, all these poor children that had to kind of endure all of this crap. But yeah, this sounds like my thing, you guys. I definitely can't wait to get to this. Next up, this is book 2 in this particular series, and this is called The Shadow of Kiyoshi by F.C. Yee, and this takes place in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're not aware, Avatar: The Last Airbender is an extremely incredibly popular animated cartoon, full of magic and whimsy and people who can move air and water and fire and earth and all that stuff. I love the cartoon. So yeah, this is just a novel that takes place, I think, like taking place hundreds and hundreds of years before the events that even happen in the cartoon series, following the character of Kiyoshi. I'm not going to sit here and go into it. If you've never read, if you've never seen the Avatar series, and there's really no sense in me sitting here trying to give a plot summary about this. But yeah, this is book 2 in this series. Next up, you guys, this is a book that wasn't even on my radar until I think I got like maybe a Barnes & Noble letter of some sort, and they were like promoting some up-and-coming books, and I was like, wow, what the hell is this book? This sounds awesome. This is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and the premise of this book, you guys, oh my god, this sounds like something I'm going to seriously really enjoy. It sounds like contemporary horror, and it's following 4 Native American who are being haunted by something that happened in their past, and there's like some weird entity or something that's stalking them. And the book, it just sounds so good. It sounds like contemporary horror. It sounds like it has a lot to do with like cultural identity. It just sounds super awesome, you guys. I'm really glad I saw this kind of wherever I saw it. Like I said, I think it was like a Barnes & Noble newsletter that I got, and they were promoting this book, and I was like, oh, I'm glad they promoted this, because I would have never heard about it otherwise. And next up, I think this is a book that is on the rise and being very, very popular at the moment. This is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Morena Garcia. This sounds epic, you guys. Right up my alley. I love Gothic horror. The synopsis makes it sound like it takes place in 1950s Mexico. We're following a young woman. She gets like a frantic message from her cousin. Something has happened. She travels to Mexico to go help out her cousin. She comes, I guess, to this grand epic estate, and some weirdness happens. It's Gothic horror. If you have a crazy weird house, there's going to be something going on. So yeah, this sounds right up my alley, you guys. I'm really glad I heard about this, because I think I'm really going to enjoy this. And yeah, it has a lot of really good reviews on Goodreads. It sounds like a lot of people just really enjoy this, so I'm hoping I'm part of the crowd too. The Pool of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This is historical fiction taking place during like the Spanish influenza, if I'm not mistaken, following a bunch of women in a maternity ward and kind of their trials and tribulations, if you will, during the Spanish influenza, while they're all trying to like have babies, I guess. and the nurses who are helping them. So yeah, this sounds right up my alley, you guys, and I've never read an Emma Donoghue book before. Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. And this book is historical fiction taking place, I think somewhere kind of around like the very, very late 1500s into the 1600s, if I'm not mistaken. The thing about this book, I had to look up a lot of reviews about this book because me, knowing history and knowing like Shakespeare, I was like, I know Shakespeare had a son named Hamlet who died very young, and that was kind of his basis for Hamlet, essentially. So the thing is, though, nowhere on the synopsis does it mention anything about Hamlet. What this book is kind of focusing on, it sounds like it's very much focusing on Shakespeare's wife, who kind of often gets very much pushed to the background, because I think a lot of people don't realize that Shakespeare was married. There's always been a lot of these fantasy things like, oh, you know, like Shakespeare in Love, you know, and stuff like that, and really kind of romanticizing Shakespeare and whatnot. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that he did have a wife. So this book, it is focused very much on Shakespeare's wife, and I think this central event in their life with the death of their son and kind of what goes on from there. And yeah, all of the reviews I was reading, all of the reviewers did make note that the name of Shakespeare is actually never even once mentioned or uttered in this entire book. But it's like you, the reader, you know that it is Shakespeare, but yeah, the name is never given. He is just always, since it is from the point of view of his wife, he's just always simply referred to, you know, by the pronoun of like he or his or something, or yeah, just simply her husband. So yeah, I am very excited to get to this. I've read a lot of Shakespeare stuff in the past, and this sounds like something quite different, you know, focusing on his wife, which sounds pretty exciting. Next up, another book that has something to do with people trying to protect Jewish children during World War II, and this is The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. And yeah, the big thing with this, it's all about these people who use this book. The book is essentially coded with all of these kids' names in this book. I guess their names, their locations, but it's coded so that way if the Nazis ever found it, the Nazis would have no idea how to decipher this book, essentially. So yeah, the book is called The Book of Lost Names within this book, and it sounds so good, you guys. It sounds like it's going to be really epic and kind of tragic and heartbreaking in places. Cursed, illustrated by Frank Miller and written by Thomas Willer, and this was recently a Netflix series. And you guys, I definitely had some complicated problems with this series on Netflix. There was a part of me, I really loved it. I just kind of enjoyed it for what it was, which I think you kind of have to do. And then there were other parts of me, I was like, what the hell have they done to Arthurian legend? I'm just confused. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this book, which the show is based off of, it's a graphic novel. Not really a graphic novel. It is in written form, and then there's like some illustrations scattered throughout. But yeah, it's about Nimue. Who, if you know your Arthurian legend, Nimue was the Lady of the Lake who gave Excalibur to King Arthur, you know, from the sea or the lake or whatever. So yeah, it plays fast and loose, you guys. From what I watched, like I said, it was very fast, very loose, kind of messy, kind of expects you to know your Arthurian legend. So I'm going to give the book a shot because, like I said, there was a weird part of me that I did thoroughly enjoy the show. I think I got over it. You know, after a couple episodes, I was like, you know, I just need to relax. You know, what I know about Arthurian legend, I just need to relax what I know, just ignore it, and just enjoy the show for what it was. And once I did that, I did start really liking the show. So I was like, I'm going to try out the book, see how the book is. If the book kind of gives any more additional information, which I'm not sure if it is, but yeah, I am looking forward to this, and I do like this cover. I wanted to get this version with the Netflix poster. Next is another book in the Disney Villains series, and this is Evil Thing by Serena Valentino, this time focused on Cruella de Vil. And I do own all these books, you guys, but I have yet to get to them. I'm ashamed to say I have yet to even read all these. I'm kind of planning on like just binging through them all at once because they're very short and tiny. I'll probably get done with each one in like a couple days a piece. So yeah, this one, Cruella, looks really cool. I like the inside flap here as well. Because this is a really cool thing about all the books. Once you open this, and then underneath they all have like a really cool image underneath on the hardback. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, Crossings by Alex Lindragon. Let me see if I can get through this plot synopsis because it was pretty dense with the synopsis here. This is a book. It follows a man who he's given a book by this a woman. I guess she's like a librarian of some sort. He's given this book, and it's called Crossings. And his job is to like bind it up. He's a book binder essentially. So it's his job to kind of bind up this book. When he goes to deliver the newly bound up book to the woman who gave it to him, he discovers that she's been mysteriously murdered. So what's up with that? Does it have something to do with this mysterious book called Crossings? So he starts to read this book to see if there's any sort of clues that he can figure out, like why would someone maybe murder her for this book. So he reads the story, the book, and inside it's divided up into like 3 different narratives. One of the narratives has something to do with like a ghost story. The second story has something to do like a romance set during the Nazi occupation of France. And then the third one has something to do with a woman who claims that she can live multiple lives and that she's lived for like generations or something like that. So all of the stories have a bit of some sort of slant to them, I suppose. So this sounds like a really interesting book. That's all the synopsis kind of gave. You know, there's a mystery. A woman has been murdered. Does it have something to do with this book? It's, like I said, it's divided up into 3 different stories. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to get into this because it sounds like it has a bit of a different kind of narrative to it, because it sounds like you are going to read, like as the man is reading these books, you're going to be there alongside him reading these stories as well. Next up, The Cabinets of Barnesmeade, Maine by Elsa Hart. This takes place in London, England, 1703, following a young woman who has just this natural knack for, you know, really enjoying things that are of the mundane, things that are curiosities, things that are kind of strange and weird, things that other people might kind of ignore, but she really appreciates these oddities. She likes collecting these sorts of things. So it follows her. It sounds like she becomes like a sort of apprentice to this man who has similar interests in her. But yeah, he winds up getting murdered. You know what? Why do I have a lot of murder going on in this book haul, you guys? There's a lot of people being murdered in this book haul. But yeah, this girl, she then needs to try to figure out why was the man she was kind of apprenticing under, why did he wind up murdered? Does it, you know, what's important about this collection of curiosities that this man has? So yeah, this kind of takes her throughout London, it sounds like, and she discovers some other weird things kind of going on, it sounds like. But yeah, this sounds awesome. You guys, can't wait to get to this. Next up, Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer, you guys. This was just a big surprise of a book that came out. I'm not ashamed. I think a lot of people are ashamed to admit this nowadays. But it's like a lot of people like to be like, oh, I read Twilight, but I hate it. I can't believe I read those things. I personally quite liked Twilight. You guys, did Twilight have some problems? Yes. But I still really enjoyed Twilight. It was what it was back in the day. So I was pretty excited to get a copy of this new book. This book is supposed to be taking place entirely like during the first book, but under Edward's perspective. So that sounds awesome. And yet this has been a journey for this book to even come out, you guys. I think a lot of people are aware of the journey of this book, because I think it was supposed to come out like years and years and years ago, but some things kind of happened. Stephanie Meyer was having some problems, because I think the book got leaked, right? Didn't it get leaked? And she was just really upset about that, and she was like, well, as punishment, no one gets this book. So I guess she changed her mind, and she's like, okay, I feel comfortable finally to go ahead and release this, and I'm glad she did, because I was always curious to kind of read this. So yeah, I'll see how this goes, you guys. I feel like I'm going to read this book and then want to have a reread of the Twilight books, because I've not read those in ages. And the last book that I have to share here for you guys is The Air Affair by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. And this is a sequel to the first book, the Royal We. I loved the Royal We, guys. It was practically Prince William and Kate Middleton fan fiction, but that was okay. I love that. So yeah, what you need to know about this duology right now, I'm not sure if it's going to be turned into like a trilogy at some point, but right now what you need to know about the duology, it takes place in a contemporary setting, following like the royal family, but like not the current royal family with Queen Elizabeth II and whatnot. It's like a different alternative version of the royal family, if you will, if that makes sense. So you have characters that are like Queen Elizabeth, obviously. You have characters like Prince William, Prince Harry, Kate Middleton. So yeah, this second book, it sounds like it takes place pretty much right after the events of the first book, and the main characters, they're now married. They're going through some scandal and some drama. And yeah, the main guy, his younger brother, sounds like he might be about to get married as well. It sounds like there's going to be a bit of like probably a Meghan Markle character in here too, possibly. So yeah, I personally just really loved the first book. It was kind of like this guilty pleasure, but just so enjoyable, and I loved it. And I normally don't read books like that. So yeah, I was really thrilled that the second book came out. I was like, I must get this. I must read it as soon as I can. So yeah, hopefully this sequel is just as good as the first book. So you guys, that's it for this book haul. In the comments below, have you guys read any of these books? Do you plan on reading any of them? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.